Hello everyone, it's Matt here, and this is going to be a bit of a different video. It's a bit of behind the scenes in that how stuff is worked, and a bit of the research process and sort of reformatting of certain pieces in how to get Lego models created. And the subject for this is Edward Hopper's 1942 painting Nighthawks. Now this has been attributed as one of Hopper's finest work. And it's a very good painting if I'm gonna be honest, but there are a few little bits to watch out for. So I'm gonna change it now to my monitor, um, and here is the Nighthawks painting. This is actually a copy I downloaded off the internet, but it's the entire painting. And you can sort of see here, this is supposed to be a sort of diner, maybe in the 30s or 40s, and you have a what might be a strange couple. With another man over here, and then you've got the server. It's a very simplistic painting, and there's quite a lot of detail in here that can be replicated in Lego, but a few things which can't, and I'll go on to that separately. Now, the interesting thing about this painting is there's things that are immediately noticed, but things which aren't. So, for example, you can see here that there is a very wide sidewalk here. So it's obviously probably a bit more affluent area, but the sidewalk at the back is a bit more narrow, so maybe this building's been recessed a bit. It's got a very fine sort of recess sort of style to it in the base. So that obviously means that it's got, but it was probably a fairly expensive building to build. I mean, you can sort of see that it's quite highly detailed. It's quite, out there in terms of style. The other thing to notice is that there's very few pillars for the glass and to actually support the building. Now, obviously, it's only a single story because you can see here that you can actually see the back building, which I'm not going to actually use for mine. But you can sort of see there's actually no roof or sort of like above floor for this part of the building. At least it's literally just that's it, and it's just a single story structure, or at least this bit is, and you can sort of see the building behind. So the other things, I did mention pillars. There's only 3 pillars shown on the outside. So you've got one here on the corner, you got another one just to the left of this pillar, again on the corner, and then you got another one here. So obviously you've got to these 2 pillars here for this curve section, and then there's no other pillar. So that is a bit of a dubious aspect of the painting, I want to say, because glass of any sort of large format is not only more complex to make, it also makes it very expensive. So if I'm going to be honest, I doubt you'd actually see a diner with this much glass like this. You'd probably see it with a pillar in the middle, so it'd just be 2 panes or possibly even 3. You wouldn't actually see it with this huge piece of glass. That would normally be reserved for high-end stores, maybe, or places which had a bit more influence. Obviously, that's not necessarily true. It could be that, if we're going to look into the realism of the painting, that maybe there was a easy way to get painted glass that big, but this is a painting from 1942, so even so, doing a glass pane that big would probably be quite hard to do. So obviously it's no good talking about the paintings just as the painting itself. There's also important to talk about the sort of any facets of detail behind the painting, and it's actually quite good because Edward Hopper's wife, who's Josephine, actually started making a note or keeping a journal after their marriage in 1924 about all the paintings, and she's actually got some about Nighthawks here. And she talks about the interior, how there's light reflections, sort of the exterior, the notes, and a few other bits and pieces. And this actually adds a little more detail. So it talks about the door behind, so I say light walls, dull yellow ochre, door into kitchen right. So that door in the background is actually the door to the kitchen, not to the entrance. So that actually adds a bit of composition to the painting, which isn't necessarily there as you notice it. So if I go back to the painting to make it a bit more clearer, So this door here is not actually the door to the outside. It's actually a door to the kitchen. So that actually adds a bit of complex. So that means that the door into the actual diner is actually off to the right hand side here, so you don't actually see it. Another thing we can note about the painting is that with the way the angles of the building are and a few other bits and pieces, it makes this more of a triangle rather than a straight square. So that is obviously another aspect which makes it a bit difficult to model in Lego, but nonetheless it can make for an interesting starting point. Pardon me. So something which so obviously I think that's really enough about the painting, and obviously if you want to know more you can find out more. But the reason why I'm looking at this painting is because I'm actually going to use it as inspiration to build a diner to actually replace the ground floor on the corner garage modular. So this is the corner garage modular. This is actually Lego's own image from their servers, and this is a set that came out January of this year, 2019, and it's actually one I've got on my wish list, and in actual fact it's now the only set I have left on my wish list, which is outstanding. And as nice as the set is, the garage does not really suit the sort of like two or three function aspect of this building, and that's why I want to strip it out and make it into a diner. So the garage is actually going to be moved into its own separate building, but the actual upstairs I'm going to keep and maybe expand out to be a bit bigger, and actually make it a bit more detailed. So what does this mean for the painting? Well, I don't actually need this open anymore, so I'll close this down. So here is the version 1 I've been building in Lego Digital Designer, and as you can see it's got the dark green colour to the exterior. It's got the lip of the building, which is quite prominent on the painting. We've got the inset here below the windows. You don't have the inset on the corner because there's not as much made in dark green as other colours, so you do lose that sort of aspect. And this was actually started before I started doing proper research into the model. So obviously this is still based on the assumption you'd stick an entrance door at the back here, and there'll be a few other bits and pieces. So there's no entrance door here, and you got the wall here. And obviously this is a corner rather than a triangular sort of wedge model. So obviously doing a bit more research led me to finding out these sort of things, and you know, this is that and the other. So I've completely took apart this, or did a copy and then took it completely apart. So I could do version 2. Now this is version 2. It's by no means complete, but it is a lot better. There are some changes I want to make. So the underside here I think is too big in terms of to be 6. So I'm actually going to strip this down and actually make it only 4 deep, and then there's going to be a space and then 4 and then a space and that sort of way. And I'm actually going to change how this inset's actually done. But this is what I'd like to call the starting point for the rest of the model. So I'll say there's still quite a lot to do on this. I'm going to need to finish off the walls, make them all the same height and tile them off to put the other floors on top of this. So this is actually going to be the base. I've started doing the reverse as well. So the door I've had to actually move in to more centre on the wall rather than on the corner, which it kind of is on the painting. But nonetheless, it's still there. It still gives us a very suggestive hint of that. Now, obviously, I've compared to Lego's model, I've actually moved the pavement out a bit, so that actually gives us a bit more room to work with. So that's enabled me to fit in an entrance lobby for the flat or apartment section upstairs. And that's actually why the door is actually coming all this way, is because the stairs coming up into the apartments are actually here, and that's enables me to actually use the upstairs quite freely without having to impact the diner. So this space all the way back here is actually just reserved for the kitchen. So I can actually brick this out, maybe put a window in here or something for the diner, and we can actually have it that way. There is actually no window between the diner itself and the kitchen area. There is one in the door, but there is nothing else. So I might be tempted to add a really small window to maybe it allows a bit of ventilation, maybe for orders to be passed through, that sort of thing. But that'd be over on here, and that wouldn't actually be seen in the painting anyway. So you can sort of see this is a really good foundation, and it also is a bit of a this is sort of how I've converted it into Lego. Now obviously there is other assets as well. So the this sort of representation of the recess sort of frontage for the detailing actually impacts the inside of the model. So I'm actually going to when I change this around, I'm going to change it to the different version, which will actually make this a lot cleaner and a lot smoother. Now some of these hints I've actually taken from the painting itself. So if I go back to the painting again, you can actually see there's actually a sort of tan sort of colour here. It doesn't match the rest of the interior, but it does give a lighter colour, and that's what I've tried to replicate with these bricks here. Now obviously you're not going to get a perfect view, so probably sort of like that, I'd imagine is probably going to be the best you're going to do for imitating the painting from this angle. It also means you lose the door, so that's probably a bit better. But again, no matter how you do a copy of the image, it's not going to be perfect, because obviously I'm trying to replicate it in Lego. The scaling's different. The fact that you've got this huge window is unrealistic to me, so I wanted to break that up a little bit. And it's just a few of the bits and pieces as well. This glass piece, for example, to get a corner, you have to, generally speaking, use this piece. There is probably a corner piece I could probably use, but I'm not sure whether that actually comes in trans clear. So this is the next best alternative, and I've had to tile this off. And again, that actually protrudes slightly, so I might have to look into alternatives. But that's a compromise I'm willing to accept. And there's a few of the bits as well. So, for example, the flooring is actually not seen in the painting. I'll show you what I mean. So there's actually no floor seen whatsoever. You just see the paneling here, which is something I've yet to look into. But you can, there's quite a lot of hints in the photo, but you don't actually see some of the specifics. So obviously it's this nice sort of like creamy interior, and obviously I've tried to get as close as I can in this with this colour, but I'm actually going to build it in tan in the end. Now obviously the other aspect is that the columns themselves are in dark green, but the rest of the building on the interior is sort of tan. Now at the moment I'm using two wide plates here to get some anchorage in for the panel pieces here, which are trans clear. The corner pieces here, are going to have to be dark green. There's no two ways about it. But I might be able to change the look of these plates here to be tan, and actually uplift the tan a bit more into the model and make it a bit more realistic in that respect. But doing the model like this is all about compromise, because certain things are only available in certain colours and that sort of thing. So it's all a bit, how do I do this without ruining this and that sort of the other. So there's quite a lot to do on this model. I need to finish off this missing section of wall here, which I'm just going to use infill. It's not actually going to be dark green, because dark green is reasonably expensive and I don't need it to be in dark green. I've said about 6 studs either end to be green, but the rest can be whatever colour. I'm probably going to use sand green because I've got quite a lot of it due to breaking up Minecraft sets. So that is how far I've gotten, how far I've sort of like reverse engineered it. So some of this is based on the painting, some of this is sort of like abstracted from the painting and from what resources are available, such as this details in that notebook. But a lot of it is literally just a case of, well, this isn't in the painting, but this is how other diners from that period have it, and that sort of stuff. So that's why you've got this sort of like nice sort of pattern floor, which isn't white and black. It's actually white and brown, because white and black seems to be a fairly modern thing, and I want to get away from just having a fairly standard white and black, which is why white and brown's a bit different. But nonetheless, it's still reasonably realistic, as you might have painted raw, so like raw wood, which is maybe veneered or something like that, and then painted wood, which would be white. So that's why I've gone for this. So that's it for now in terms of the work on the Nighthawks painting replica, and I'm going to be digging away at this in little bits and chunks over the next couple of months to finally actually get it to a more complete state, for actually start doing some proper building work on it. But nonetheless, I think this is going to be one of those projects where I'm in it for the long haul, because again, I need to buy a copy of the Corner Garage set to get the pieces for the upstairs floor. So that's all for later anyway. So that's it for the this video, and there'll be updates on this, as I said, maybe May sort of June time. So that's it for now, and see you later.